Oh, got 'em. Here's Kenner's SSP Pee-wees. They're great little SSPs.
The 1970s were a wild time to be a kid with a toy box because the same decade that gave children bright plastic, backyard games, rockets, race cars, chemistry sets, and noisy playground chaos also gave parents some truly nerve-wracking hazards. A lot of these toys were sold as harmless fun, but looking back, some of them feel like they were designed during a group meeting where nobody had ever met a cautious adult. There were toys that shattered, toys that burned, toys that launched tiny missiles, toys with chemicals, toys with cords that looked like electrical plugs, and outdoor games that were basically weapons with cheerful packaging. Before we start, drop a comment and tell us which old toy you remember loving, even though it probably would not survive modern safety rules. Today, we're looking at 10 dangerous 1970s toys that were banned, recalled, pulled, or redesigned after injuring kids. Clackers.
Everyone will want to kerbang because it's fun for all ages. So look out, Smitty's has brought the kerbanger back.
Clackers looked simple. Two hard acrylic balls attached to a string. The goal was to swing them up and down until they smacked together in a steady, satisfying rhythm. The sound was loud, sharp, and impossible for parents to ignore. The problem was right there in the design. Kids were whipping hard plastic balls through the air near their faces, hands, and eyes. If the balls cracked or shattered, the toy could send fragments flying. By the mid-70s, Clacker-style toys had become a classic example of fun that turned risky fast. Jarts. Jarts, also known as lawn darts, were a backyard game built around tossing oversized darts with weighted metal tips onto plastic target rings on the grass. In theory, this was horseshoes with fins. In practice, children were throwing sharp projectiles into the air. The danger was obvious, but the game stayed popular for years. Lawn darts were tied to serious injuries and deaths before the government finally moved against pointed versions. Today, the safer versions use rounded tips, but the old steel-spiked jarts remain one of the most infamous outdoor toys ever made. Water wiggle.
Crazy water wiggle, you can't tell what he'll do. You think you're chasing him, and oh, he's chasing you. What you doing, you're a giggle.
Water wiggle!
You're sweating every wriggle. Water wiggle!
Water wiggle water toy. Your parents attach it to any garden hose.
The water wiggle sounded perfect for summer. You connected it to a garden hose, turned on the water, and watched the hose dance around wildly while kids chased it across the yard. The recalled version had a dangerous flaw. If the bell-shaped plastic head came off, the exposed metal nozzle could become deadly. After child deaths were linked to the toy, Whammo stopped sales and recalled the product. What looked like splashy backyard fun became one of the decade's most chilling toy safety stories. Battlestar Galactica missile toys.
Cylon Raider missile base open.
Get it! All right, now get him! Shoot!
These redesigned toys do not launch missiles.
When Battlestar Galactica became a hit, Mattel released space vehicles that fired small red plastic missiles. Kids loved launching them from ships like the Colonial Viper and Cylon Raider. But those tiny missiles created a choking and aspiration hazard. Children could put them in their mouths, and accidents followed. Mattel launched a mail-in program so families could send back the missiles in exchange for a Hot Wheels car. Later versions were redesigned so the missiles could not actually launch. Toy Cork Rifles.
And what you do is you just push it real fast and it makes a cool pop sound. See that? And then you can pull this one back and it resets it so you can keep doing it.
Toy Cork Rifles were supposed to offer safe, pretend Western action. Kids could aim, fire, and watch a cork pop out instead of anything more serious. But some toy cork guns had a hidden danger inside. If the muzzle was removed and the toy was fired towards a child's face, interior metal rods could shoot forward and cause serious eye injuries. It was the kind of risk most parents would never spot just by looking at the box. Hobbie toy telephones.
This is the wonderful world of Holly Hobbie, where your little girls can still enjoy the magic of make-believe.
The Hobbie toy telephone set sounded charming. Two battery-operated phones were connected by a cord, so children could talk to each other like they had their own little home intercom. Then came the problem. The cord had two prong plugs that looked too much like real electrical plugs. Children could try to force them into wall outlets, creating a shock and burn hazard. One child was reportedly burned, and the cores were recalled and replaced with a safer design. 3 stars plastic ring caps.
The Tommy Burst has automatic bolt action. Fire off a burst of 10 shots. Pull the bolt again, you're reloaded. Or fire single shots like a rifle. The Tommy Burst alone is $3.
Cap guns were a childhood staple, but the 3 stars plastic ring caps brought a scary twist to a familiar toy. These caps used small charges of pyrotechnic material to make the popping sound kids expected. The danger was that the charged pellets could fall out and explode without warning. Some reportedly went off in children's pockets. Several children suffered burns, and the caps were recalled. It was pretend gunplay with a risk that was far too real. Easy Bake Oven.
Fun to bake, for goodness sake. What a treat. Fun to eat. Easy bake, easy bake.
Betty Crocker Easy Bake Oven with mixes from Kenner.
The Easy Bake Oven was already a classic by the 70s. It let kids bake tiny cakes using heat from a light bulb, which felt magical when you were young and mildly alarming once you became an adult. The older models were not the same ones involved in the famous 2000s recall, but the basic idea still had risks. Children were being encouraged to cook with a working heat source inside a plastic toy. Burns were always part of the concern, and later redesigns showed how seriously manufacturers eventually had to take that risk. Chemistry sets.
Would you tell the TV audience how you made your amazing discovery?
Well, it all started when I got my Gilbert Chem Lab.
The Chem Lab comes with all these Gilbert chemicals and lab equipment.
Chemistry sets were sold as educational toys, and for many kids, they were. They made science feel hands-on and exciting. The trouble was that earlier sets could include real chemicals capable of producing fumes, burns, or reactions that were not exactly kitchen table friendly. By the 1970s, companies were already reducing some of the more reactive ingredients. The toy did not disappear, but it changed. The old dream of letting children run mini laboratories at home slowly gave way to safer, more controlled experiments. Super elastic bubble plastic.
That's right, plastic bubbles from a tube. Just squeeze it out and blow it up. They're beautiful. Kids of all ages enjoy super elastic bubble plastic. It's just as much fun as Frisbees. Frisbees and super elastic bubble plastic sold separately from Whammo.
Super elastic bubble plastic was a strange little wonder. Kids squeezed a colored glob onto the end of a straw and blew it into shiny, rubbery bubbles. It looked like science fiction gum. The problem was the smell and the reason for it. The product involved solvents that could make children lightheaded or dizzy if inhaled too much. It was not a sharp metal dart or a plastic missile, but it still belonged to the same 1970s club of toys that seemed fun while adults asked what children were actually breathing. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these 70s toys surprises you the most? Let us know in the comments section below.